Why didn't Canada shoot down the Chinese spy balloon? This is the Great White North Report.
I'm in love with the system. Never going home. I'm in love.
This CBC article talks about why didn't Canada shoot down the Chinese spy balloon, and they give some valid reasons, but I don't think they give every reason. And I think a lot of Canadians are asking why didn't we shoot this damn thing down? You know, after all, after I left Alaska, I went through the Yukon, down through BC, and into Montana. That's a lot of territory, Canadian airspace, that I went through. So it's first sighted January 28th as it flew over Alaska. It then flew over Yukon and BC's interior before returning to American airspace in Montana. Yep, we know that. Some Canadians, including opposition party members and CBC readers, have questioned why this country didn't act sooner. Why didn't we shoot it down ourselves? Because we have jurisdiction over our own airspace. Now, according to our military experts, the answer is no. So this University of Calgary history professor and military historian David Percussion says that's silly, that we should have shot it down. Ignores the fact that NORAD exists and we're part of it and have been part of it for over almost 80 years now. So it's a NORAD decision. So the North American Aerospace Defense Command is responsible for aerospace warning, aerospace control, and maritime warning, which means the Americans wanted to be the guys to shoot it down. They wanted bragging rights. Any decision to act within Canadian airspace would be in the purview of the Canadian government, and the NORAD agreement makes NORAD an executor of that decision making. Okay, so if the Canadian government really wanted to shoot it down, they could have shot it down, and NORAD would have been the one who... That means the Canadian government could have gave the okay to shoot it down in Canadian territory, but NORAD could have assigned U.S. pilots to do it. So once we discovered it, the hierarchies, political and military, of both governments are informed. That makes sense. The decision on how to act will be balanced between intelligence and operational security and public safety. Apparently there was some action when the balloon was over Canada. There was speculation about a second one, and they launched NORAD fighters, Canadian CF-18s, and were not able to collaborate any additional balloons. Big question is, why was it allowed to fly over North America? Well, apparently they wanted to get information about this thing. Where it was going, how fast it flies, how high up is it, what's on it, and the fact is it's pretty big. It's not a small, your typical Sundance balloons, nor was it the Goodyear blimp, or any Graf Zeppelin. So they wanted to assess what they were doing, what kind of capabilities existed on the balloon, what kind of transmission capabilities existed. The military was looking at the frequencies. What kind of frequency were they transmitting on? Could they jam it? That type of stuff. Emission devices that were sending information back to China from this balloon. So they're looking at that. That makes sense, but they could have did that. Well, it doesn't take long to figure that out. Also, they wanted the Chinese not to know whether NORAD knew about it. And they think that the Chinese just wanted to see how we'd react. Well, we should have acted more aggressively, because the next balloon could have had something else on it, and there could be more than one. So they follow the track so you can see when it entered U.S. airspace and how quickly it flew down. It took 4 days to get from Alaska when it was first entered U.S. airspace down to Montana. It's pretty fast. And then you see the flight path through the United States. And then it took another 4 days to reach the East Coast. They've admitted that this is not the first balloon that evaded detection by North America's aging early warning system in the past because of a domain awareness gap that has since been closed. This would be a fine time for the Canadian government to start upgrading NORAD, stop wasting money on other stupid things, and put money into our defense. Like, our defense capabilities are being severely strained right now because we've been sending a lot of stuff to Ukraine, which is a good thing, I think. The Ukrainians need help. The Russians are complete assholes. But we also need to replenish what we're giving. And I don't see that coming anytime soon. So they wanted to shoot it down over water. Why? Because it's 200 feet tall. So this isn't some Goodyear blimp. So 60 meters, that's pretty big, with a payload that carries. So it's like a jet airliner type of size, weighing in excess of a couple thousand pounds, or at least 900 kilograms. It's going to have a debris field of about 1,500 meters by 1,500 meters. A lot of empty space in Canada to do that. But again, it went down the Rockies, so that'd be hard to get to. You shot it down over the mountains. So I understand. Montana would have been the perfect place to do it. Do we have the capability? CF-18s are only fly at about 50,000 feet or 15,000 meters, while the balloon was flying at 60,000, 18,000 meters. Potentially out of range for these jets. Out of range for the jets, but not out of range for a missile. There are missiles, we do have missiles, I believe, that can go the extra miles. Would Canada want to expend the kind of money to do that? Because missiles aren't cheap. So if we don't have the capability, the Americans do. What does it say about our overall security? Well, our security kind of sucks in Canada, but what can you do? So the Bloc Québécois defense critic, who is a separatist, says, high time the government took action to counter Chinese influence and modernize Canada's defense systems. This coming from a Quebec separatist. And I perfectly agree. It's time for us to counter the Chinese influence and to modernize our defense systems as well as our armed forces. We're lagging behind. It's taking too long. Perfectly agree with that one. And the Americans probably wanted the glory of shooting it down. Though an American fighter could have went into Canadian airspace and shot it down with our permission. But I also think the Trudeau government did not want to anger the Chinese. The Americans can piss off the Chinese all they want because the China won't strike back at the Americans, quite like they will against us. The Chinese Communist Party does not look upon Canada favorably and looks upon us as a tribute state. And if we shot down their balloon, how dare we? A little country like us standing up to them. We already seen that portrayed during the Meng the Merciless crisis. It took 2 years, and Covery and Spavor paid a pretty big price for that, as well as some other Canadians, and also our export products to China took a hit. That's probably a big reason why the Canadian government decided not to allow the balloon to be shot down in Canadian airspace, because it would be seen by China as an act of defiance. And Trudeau wants closer relations with China. No one else does, but he does. And he doesn't want to piss them off any more than we already have. He's afraid of the backlash. So that'd be the other reason that's not mentioned in this article, is the political fallout. We shot it down in Canadian airspace, and even more if a Canadian pilot aircraft had shot it down, the Chinese would be livid. The fact that the Americans shot it down, they're not going to do much. They watered down the wording of their rhetoric. And of course their propaganda machine blamed everyone under the sun and downplayed everything. But if Canada had done it, oh Christ, a lot of things would have happened. There would be, our exports to China would be placed under restrictions, maybe bans. More Canadians might be arrested. Who knows what would have happened. But anyway, any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of the Chinese balloon. Should Canadians have shot it down if we could have? Or at least allowed an American fighter to come into Canadian airspace and shot it down? And should we be upgrading NORAD in the Canadian Air Force? Leave comments in the comment section. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.
I'm in love with the